What if the biggest obstacle in your life isn't failure? What if it isn't bad luck? What if it isn't a lack of talent? What if the real problem is something happening inside your own mind? Right now, at this very moment, millions of people are trapped inside invisible mental loops. Not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because they're thinking instead of acting. And the more they think, the more stuck they become. This is the hidden psychology of overthinking. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your mind keeps trapping you and how to break free. Most people believe overthinking is a sign of intelligence. It feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like progress. After all, you're analyzing, researching, planning, preparing. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Overthinking often looks like progress, yet nothing actually moves. The goal remains exactly where it was. The opportunity remains untouched. The decision remains unmade. And your life remains on pause. While you're busy thinking about the future is quietly passing by. The brain loves this trap because thinking feels safer than acting. Thinking carries no risk. Action does. And that's why many people spend years preparing for a life they never actually start. Here's something most people don't know. Your brain reacts to uncertainty almost the same way it reacts to danger. Thousands of years ago, this made perfect sense. A rustle in the bushes could mean a predator. Uncertainty meant survival was at stake. But today, the lion is gone. The danger isn't. Now uncertainty shows up as starting a business, uploading a video, changing careers, asking someone out, making an important decision. And your brain reacts as if a lion is standing directly in front of you. A genuine threat, an uncomfortable decision. To your nervous system, they can feel remarkably similar. That's why your heart races. That's why your stomach tightens. That's why your mind desperately searches for certainty. The problem: certainty rarely exists. Overthinking creates a cruel illusion. It convinces you that one more thought will solve everything. One more analysis. One more comparison. One more scenario. One more prediction. And then you'll finally feel ready. But that moment never arrives. Instead, you enter a loop. A circular mental prison with no exit. The more answers you find, the more questions appear, the more possibilities you imagine, the more uncertainty you discover. The result: exhaustion, mental fatigue, decision paralysis, and a growing lack of trust in yourself. The most dangerous effect of overthinking isn't wasted time. It's self-doubt. After enough mental debates, you stop trusting your own judgment. Every decision becomes suspicious. Every choice feels risky. Every instinct becomes questionable. You begin treating yourself like an unreliable source. And that's when confidence starts collapsing. Because confidence isn't knowing every answer. Confidence is trusting yourself when answers don't exist. The longer you overthink, the weaker that trust becomes. Have you ever noticed how thoughts become louder at night? The room is quiet, the lights are off, and suddenly your mind begins replaying conversations. Mistakes, possibilities, worst-case scenarios. The brain starts searching for solutions, but it finds none, because most nighttime worries aren't problems to solve. They're uncertainties to accept. The more you fight them, the stronger they become. The more attention you give them, the more power they gain. Most people think overthinking only wastes time. But the cost is much bigger. It steals energy. It destroys momentum. And it kills opportunities. Think about how many opportunities disappear while someone waits for perfect certainty. How many dreams remain unfinished. How many chances pass by? How many goals never become reality? Not because people couldn't succeed, but because they never started. The opportunity wasn't lost because of failure. It was lost because of hesitation. Here's a realization that changes everything. No path is free from uncertainty. Not one. The job you choose contains unknowns. The job you reject contains unknowns. The relationship you pursue contains unknowns. The relationship you avoid contains unknowns. Every road contains risks. Every road contains surprises. Every road contains uncertainty. The goal isn't finding the perfect path. The goal is choosing a path despite uncertainty. Because uncertainty isn't a bug in life. It's a feature. One of the most powerful psychological skills is learning to separate yourself from your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. That's a huge difference. A thought says, "What if I fail?" Instead of believing it instantly, observe it. A thought says, "What if people judge me?" Observe it. A thought says, "I'm not ready." Observe it. The moment you create distance, you create freedom. And where there is freedom, there is choice. Whenever you're trapped in overthinking, ask yourself 3 questions. How will this matter in 10 minutes? How will this matter in 10 months? How will this matter in 10 years? Most fears fail this test immediately. What feels enormous today often becomes irrelevant tomorrow. Perspective shrinks anxiety. Perspective restores clarity. Perspective reminds you what truly matters. Action creates confidence, not the other way around. Most people wait to feel confident before acting. But confidence is a result, not a requirement. Think about pushing a heavy car. At first it barely moves. Then it begins rolling. Then momentum takes over. Life works exactly the same way. Small actions create movement. Movement creates progress. Progress creates confidence. And confidence creates more action. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every notification deserves a response. Not every headline deserves your energy. Your mind is valuable. Protect it. The information you consume becomes the thoughts you think. The thoughts you think become the emotions you feel. The emotions you feel become the actions you take. And those actions become your life. Guard your mental space carefully, because what enters your mind eventually shapes your future. Real confidence isn't certainty. Real confidence is trust. Trust that you'll adapt. Trust that you'll learn. Trust that you'll recover. Trust that you'll find a way forward. Confident people don't know the future. Nobody does. They simply know they can handle whatever arrives. That's what makes them powerful. Here's something most psychology videos won't tell you. Overthinking isn't just a habit. For many people, it becomes an identity. They begin to see themselves as someone who worries, someone who analyzes everything, someone who's naturally cautious. And once it becomes identity, it becomes invisible, because you don't question who you are. You just act like yourself. That's just how I am. I've always been a thinker. I need more time than others. These aren't descriptions. They're cages. Comfortable cages you've built around yourself without noticing. The truth is harsh. Most people who call themselves overthinkers are actually avoiding something specific. A conversation they're afraid to have. A decision they're afraid to make. A version of themselves they're afraid to become. Overthinking becomes the excuse that protects them from that fear. And as long as you carry it as an identity, you'll never look underneath it. Let's go deeper. When someone overthinks a decision, the surface fear looks like this. What if I make the wrong choice? But underneath that, there's always something more specific. What if I fail and people see it? What if I succeed and then lose it? What if I try my hardest and it still isn't enough? What if this is as good as I get? These are the real fears. Not the situation, not the decision. The fears are about what the outcome will say about you as a person. Overthinking is never really about the problem. It's about identity. It's about self-worth. It's about what you secretly believe you deserve. And until you look at that, no amount of logic or planning will ever make you feel ready. Overthinking doesn't happen in isolation. It feeds on comparison. You see someone else's highlight reel. Their success, their confidence, their results, and your mind quietly begins to ask, why not me? What's wrong with me? They figured it out, why can't I? And then the spiral begins, analyzing what they did differently, wondering what you're missing, questioning whether you have what it takes. Here's the brutal truth about comparison. You are comparing your internal experience to someone else's external appearance. You know every doubt you've had, every failure, every moment of insecurity, but you only see their finished product, their success story, their confident moment. That comparison is never fair. It's never accurate, and it will never motivate you. It will only paralyze you. Your brain default mode network. When you're not focused on a task, this network activates automatically. It starts reviewing the past, projecting into the future, analyzing social situations, constructing worst-case scenarios. This is useful for survival. But in the modern world, it runs constantly because your brain has no real predators left to watch for. So it invents problems. It generates threats. It simulates disasters, not because they're real, but because your brain is designed to keep you safe. The problem is that the threats it manufactures are mostly imaginary. And you can't fight an imaginary threat. You can only sit inside it, thinking, worrying, looping. Understanding this is freeing. It means the spiral isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign your brain is working exactly as designed. In the wrong environment, for the wrong threats, most people experience overthinking as a mental problem. But here's what they miss. Overthinking lives in the body. When your nervous system enters a threat state, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tighten, your digestion slows, your focus narrows, and in that state, clear thinking becomes impossible, because your brain isn't designed to think creatively when it believes danger is near. It's designed to scan for threats, to prepare for escape or defense, not to make calm, rational decisions. This is why you can't think your way out of overthinking. You have to move your way out. Slow breathing sends a signal to your nervous system. The danger isn't real. You can relax. It's safe to think clearly now. A simple technique. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 8 counts. Do this 3 times before any major decision. You'll be amazed at the clarity that returns. Overthinking and perfectionism are brothers. They live in the same house. Perfectionism tells you the output must be flawless. Overthinking tells you the planning must be complete. Together, they create an impossible standard. Nothing is ever ready. Nothing is ever good enough. Nothing is ever safe enough to release. Here's what perfectionism never tells you. Perfect doesn't exist. Every successful person you admire released imperfect work, uploaded imperfect videos, started imperfect businesses, had imperfect conversations. The difference between them and the person still stuck in planning is that they released anyway. Done is not the enemy of good. Waiting for perfect is. A video uploaded today will always outperform a perfect video that never gets published. A business started imperfectly will always earn more than one still in the planning document. The world rewards action, not intention. The reason most people overthink decisions is a deep fear of failure. But here's what nobody explains properly. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the pathway to it. Every piece of information you gained in this video, every insight you've ever had, every skill you've ever built, came from doing something imperfectly, learning from what didn't work, adjusting and continuing. Failure teaches in a way that planning cannot. When you fail at something real, you discover things about yourself, the problem and the solution, that no amount of thinking could have revealed. The irony: overthinkers are trying to avoid failure. But the only way to truly avoid growth is to avoid failure. And the only way to avoid failure is to never start. The fear of failure doesn't protect you. It traps you at the starting line while everyone else is running the race. Right now, as you watch this, there is a decision sitting in your mind. A decision you've been postponing. Maybe for days, maybe for months, maybe for years. You know what it is, and you know why you haven't made it. Because making it means something changes. Making it means you become responsible for the outcome. Making it means you can no longer say, "I'm still figuring it out." Here's what that postponement is costing you. Every day you delay, you spend mental energy maintaining the indecision, carrying the weight of the unresolved, living in the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap has a price. It costs you sleep. It costs you presence. It costs you peace. The decision doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be made. Because a made decision, even an imperfect one, creates momentum. A postponed decision creates only more paralysis. Here's a practical tool you can use starting today. If a decision has been sitting in your mind for more than 24 hours, give yourself 2 minutes to make it. Set a timer. Write down 2 options. Choose one. Commit to it. The goal isn't to make the perfect decision. The goal is to train your brain that decisions are survivable. Because here's what happens when you practice this. Your brain slowly stops treating every decision as a crisis. It begins to trust that you can handle outcomes. It begins to release the grip of analysis. And over time, the spirals become shorter. The paralysis becomes weaker. The confidence becomes stronger. Small practice, enormous result. Here's a perspective shift that might change everything for you. Every crisis you've imagined in the past. Every worst-case scenario you've spent hours preparing for. Every catastrophe your mind has constructed in the dark. Most of them never happened. And the ones that did, you survived them. You adapted. You found a way through. You are here. That's not nothing. That's everything. Your track record for surviving difficult moments is 100%. Let that land. 100%. Every hard day you feared. You came through it. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not without pain. But you came through. Your mind will always generate new fears. New worst cases. New reasons to hesitate. But your history says something different. It says you're more capable than your fear believes. It says you adapt. It says you recover. It says you continue. Trust the evidence of your own life. Every time you choose action over analysis, something small changes inside you. Not dramatic, not instant, but real. A tiny deposit of confidence. A tiny signal to your brain that you are someone who moves. Someone who decides. Someone who takes steps despite uncertainty. And those deposits accumulate. Over weeks. Over months. Over years. The person who takes small, imperfect actions daily becomes unrecognizable from the person they were before. Not because they made brilliant decisions, but because they made decisions. Not because they always knew the right move, but because they moved anyway. The goal isn't to become someone who doesn't overthink. The goal is to become someone who acts in spite of it. And that person, the one who acts, is who you're becoming right now. Fear will always have something to say. It will tell you to wait, to hesitate, to stay comfortable, to stay safe, to avoid risk. But everything meaningful in life exists beyond comfort. Every achievement, every breakthrough, every transformation. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a doorway most people never walk through. The difference between the life you have and the life you want may be a single step. A step taken while fear is still speaking. A step taken while certainty is still missing. A step taken despite doubt. Because courage isn't acting without fear. Courage is acting anyway. Powerful ending. One day you'll realize something. The biggest mistakes in life usually aren't the actions you took. They're the opportunities you never pursued. The conversations you never had. The dreams you never started. The chances you never gave yourself. Don't let overthinking become your prison. Think less, trust more, move forward, and remember, you don't need certainty to begin. You only need the courage to take the next step.